The Austin American Statesman, an institution in this community for over 100 years, covering the changing life of religion in Austin today. Stay with us on Austin Faith Dialogue to learn more.
Austin Faith Dialogue, at the crossroads of religion and life. A series highlighting the cultural and social interactions between the worshiping and religious communities in and around the capital city. Austin Faith Dialogue is brought to you by the Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KXAN. Join us now in Austin Faith Dialogue.
Hello, I'm Richard Thompson of Austin Metropolitan Ministries, welcoming you to this edition of the show. The good news and the daily news might be one way of coming at our subject today as we look at the relationship between religion and journalism, particularly as it's evidenced here in Austin with the Austin American Statesman. This is the newspaper that's been covering the life of this city since the 19th century. But religion isn't the same today as it was 100 years ago, not even what it was 10 years ago. And how the newspaper seeks to report and to interpret and to enrich this interaction is our subject with our guest today, the religion writer of the Austin American Statesman, Kim Sulia Parks. Glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
And wanted to just have you tell us, Kim, a little bit about when you came to Austin and what your background is for this job that you've got.
I've been in Austin about 8 months, and I had previously covered religion. So unlike what they do at some papers, which is basically find another reporter inside the office and ask them to cover religion, I actually have experience on the beat. And I was there at the Arizona Republic for 10 years and spent 18 years actually in Phoenix, and about 12 of those covering religion.
I see. So that's all you do here in the Austin American Statesman, is
yes,
to focus
it's wonderful.
on... Really? You're not having to be out in the police beat or doing something else like that?
No. Now, I better take this back and be careful here, and that is that sometimes at the newspaper we will rotate shifts, and so yes, like this past Saturday I worked the cops beat. But all that I think is it's very healthy. When you have a beat, it's a good thing to sometimes change for a little bit, but it is my job specifically to cover religion in Austin.
So you've been doing religion stories in Arizona before you came here. What's the main change that you've seen coming to Austin? What characterizes our city as far as what you've discovered so far? Well,
Austin is very eclectic, and we have everything here from the radical liberals to the ultra-conservatives. I find that very exciting because there's such a mix here in Austin in which to cover. What we don't have in Austin, although it's growing, is a very large Jewish community, which I was familiar with in Phoenix. Mm-hmm. We also don't have a necessarily large Muslim community, but it's also growing. And so I think that those are communities to watch. They're certainly bringing in the high-tech industry in particular, is bringing in a lot of these workers of these particular faiths. When I first came to Austin, I would say that I was a bit surprised at how noticeably Christian the city was. Mm-hmm. And I say that because one of my stories early on had to deal with the fact that there was this very large band festival that was planned at a high school, and it was on a religious holy day. So many of the Jewish children were unable to participate in that holy day. Now, I believe that where I previously come from, we went through those growing pains. You know, Austin is the size that Phoenix was when I first moved there.
I see.
And I grew up with Phoenix, basically, and with the religious community there. And I see myself sort of in that same position here.
Okay. So the pluralism is increasing here, is it? Would have already happened in larger places. And that means that, among other things, the kinds of stories that you have to choose from may be a little more complicated. I mean, what's the basis of choosing what to write on? What's your editorial policy on that?
Well, people often ask me, how do I get my story ideas to start out with? And the reality is the very hardest part about being a religion writer is making that choice of what to actually cover.
Right.
I mean, if you really think about it, that in any given Sunday, there are more people in church than there are at all sporting events combined throughout the year. I'm talking NBA, I'm talking the football, I'm talking college sports. So we have this mass amount of folks that are going to church, are going to their house of worship on Sundays, and yet often at newspapers, including ours, we have one religion writer. Whereas in the sports department, you're going to have specialists.
Oh, yeah, right.
You're going to have a guy who covers the baseball and knows baseball inside and out, and someone who covers football inside and out. And, you know, it's my job to sort of know a little bit about everybody, and I don't claim to be a theologian or to be an expert on everybody's faith, but I certainly have to try and exhibit fairness, and that's always my goal. I want people to feel that they've been treated fairly. And when I go to make a decision about something, a lot of times it has to do with news, the news value of this particular story. And that's primarily because I sit in the news department as opposed to some other newspapers where they have religion sections where they can put more variety in. You know, nowadays there's a lot towards Christian music, Christian books, even more feature story type material, although I do believe that our lifestyle section, a couple of our writers have really carried the ball and done some excellent religion stories that belonged on the lifestyle pages, and I always welcome that.
I see. In other words, it breaks out of the box of having a religion section when you find these stories in lifestyle or sometimes even on the front page. I've noticed your byline on the front page in different times.
I'm very fortunate at the American Statesman, and one of the reasons I really wanted to come here is that Rich Oppel, the executive editor, is very committed to religion coverage, and he sees it as such an integral part of people's lives that it is in fact news, that it deserves to be on the front page, it deserves to be on the front of Valley and State. I agree with that philosophy of it. Making the selection, though, and I'm not sure I totally answered that question, so let me get back to it. You know, take, for instance, University Baptist Church.
Okay.
Okay, when we found out that that the Baptist General Convention of Texas was looking at removing its affiliation with University Baptist because of UBC's ministry to gay people. Well, this is big news. And, you know, we come back and we cover this. So in the meantime, I might have 5 or 6 people who call me with wonderful stories of what's going on in their church, but it's always a matter of prioritizing what immediacy factor I have to respond to. And when you have something like that going on, I'm underneath some immediacy factor. The Dell Jewish Community Center, the building of that facility.
Right.
You know, I'm confined by the city council when it makes its decision about this, and those factors play into what moves up on my list of what has to be covered for that day or for that week.
Right. So that really makes it seems to me, a much more dynamic and realistic process. If you're being driven by news just the way any other section of the paper would be, and as distinct from maybe just writing up what might be more conventional ways of covering religion, of ice cream social sort of thing.
Right. Well, it's wonderful. I love being in the news section, and I'm driven to be there, and I think it's a great decision to cover religion that way. There is a downside, though, and the downside is that when you have a religion section, and I had one in Arizona when I was the religion editor, is you can cover more of a variety of topics. You know, you have the luxury of being able to sometimes, maybe you can't do a story about an event, but you can go out and take pictures of it, and you have a place to put that into the section. You have something that maybe doesn't warrant front page coverage, but it's a great story about faith moving in someone's life or what have you, and therefore you have a place to put those kind of stories.
Well, now that's interesting because I've been recently in the Metroplex and also in Houston, where I've become aware that these papers have religion sections.
Right.
And the one in Houston, for instance, had a feature on the various healing ministries that were connected to the medical complex, MD Anderson side of the city there. And up in Dallas, you know, they have I think it's Saturday it comes out, but it's really a thorough kind of an analysis of various aspects of religious life. And now that you mention it, I don't think we have that here.
No, we don't. And we call those in the trade among religion writers mega religion sections, you know, the mega section, because they're so large and they do such a broad-based area of coverage. We don't have that here. We do have on Saturdays a religion page that runs inside of the lifestyle section. I have not had much interaction with that page, but I have been working very hard, in fact, this past week, starting to speak to features about to see if we could coordinate a little bit better in terms of what we're doing on that page. We have two faithful local columnists on that page, but one of the things that we do run there also is something we call religion notes.
Right.
And I believe we failed the community a little bit with religion notes in that we need to look at maybe possibly retooling. And I'm open to suggestions from the community about this. I mean, we list them by denomination right now.
Right.
And I intend to throw out some suggestions of maybe relisting that by like events, seminars, music, possibly expanding that so that we can get more information in for people, because it's little things like that that I think we can better serve the community, and we have to always reevaluate those things. You know, we set up those things at newspapers, just like many offices set up a system, and then we kind of like ignore it and let the system run itself. But I'd certainly like to see us give more churches an opportunity, and more synagogues and more mosques and temples to get some more exposure there.
The religion notes is not your bailiwick as such.
No.
I mean, that's somebody else that does that.
Someone else does that, and that can be confusing about the process when you're trying to
Yeah.
get into religion notes.
So people call up, they give an email address or a fax or whatever and say, here's the way you can get your information into us and get listed in this Saturday section. It's also interesting that you've got in the paper certain columns. I know Browning Ware, a retired pastor from the First Baptist Church, has written a column for years. And
Right.
Bob Lively, who is a pastoral counselor out at River Bend, comes in with an article periodically. And so you've got certain features like that. But again, that's not something that you're responsible for developing that. That comes in some other
No,
section.
those mechanisms and those columnists and all of that, that page, that was all set into place before I came on board 8 months ago. And to tell you the truth, I don't know, has it been there 5 years, 3 years, 2 years? I honestly don't know the answer to that. That comes out of the features department, which are the lifestyle pages of the newspaper. They coordinate that.
Well, I think that as we're going to be taking a break here in just a little bit, but I'd like to come back to the whole issue of what Karl Barth, the great Protestant theologian, said, that he said the Christian, at least, should have the Bible in one hand and the newspaper in the other hand, and that somehow to bring those two aspects of life together and to see them as a whole rather than just compartmentalized ghetto aspects of existence is a challenge for both the people within faith communities, and I think it's a challenge for journalists to find that this is news and this is something that people want to know about, even if they're not in congregations. They need to, and want to know about it. And what some of those stories are that you've covered that could be examples of that, and how we can, within the religious community, help you folks do your job better, then we'll come back to that.
Great.
And that was almost a little sermon, wasn't it? We'll pause for now, however, and take a break on Austin Faith Dialogue. Welcome back to Austin Faith Dialogue, where today our subject is the Austin American Statesman and its relation to the religious community here in the city. And we have the religion writer from the Statesman. Kim, in the first half, was wanting to just have you give us a little bit of a sense of the range of stories that you cover. Let's pick that up now and give some examples of what you've done recently, or since you've been here since I guess you said you came last June.
Yes. Well, I try to very much be conscious of the fact of wanting to be an inclusive religion writer and trying to find stories that do involve different faiths. We had a large story about the Mormon trek at the anniversary of Brigham Young's trek, and that some people might have thought, well, what does that have to do with Austin? But we do also have a growing Mormon community here, and a very vibrant one. And one of the interesting things about that, something I didn't know as I went to do some research, that one of Joseph Smith's apostles, Lyman White, really wanted to bring Zion to Texas. And we almost had what Utah has right here in Texas. Mm-hmm. So,
in the Hill Country, they have what's called the Mormon Trails, which goes back
right.
Historically to that time.
That's correct. You know, we have the Lyman White Trail that comes down into Texas, and poor Lyman White eventually got excommunicated from the church for being quite a bit of a rebel about things. However, he did bring a group of Mormons here into central Texas, and tried to establish that Zion, part of what fell apart
so that
was
was one
Republic
story.
thing. All right, so that was one. And then we have, I don't know, recently there's been a lot about the homosexual issue, because there isn't a week that goes by that I don't get 3 or 4 news releases from mainline denominations regarding what is going on there. Someone is blessing some same-sex union or considering ordaining a clergy member that is a homosexual. That seems to be really the overriding issue in mainline denominations right now. One of the problems you have as a religion writer, being in the secular news media, and we have such a bad reputation, is that whenever you go to write about these subjects, I think people want to leap to the conclusion that that's the liberal media creating a story like that. When the truth is that it's everywhere in the churches right now. We can't ignore what's going on.
Sure.
But what you hope is that both sides are represented.
And as you say earlier, to treat it fairly.
That's correct.
Okay, there are a couple of stories. What else have you been writing about?
Well, I think it feels like some days it just feels like I have so much to write about. I don't know, where to begin on certain particular stories, but I think we did a good job with the Jehovah's Witnesses Kingdom Hall raising. We went up to Copper's Cove when they actually built an entire witness hall in 72 hours there.
Right. This was after the tornado came through up there, wasn't it?
Yes, this was after the Gerald. That was at Gerald, but this was at Copper's Cove by Colleen.
Okay.
Of course, you could be getting me into trouble because my geography is not real good
okay.
yet. Here in Texas, this is a very large state.
But this is
learning.
a regional story. I mean, it's beyond Austin per se, but it's...
Right. Well, we like to think of ourselves as a regional newspaper. We're the Central Texas newspaper. Now, of course, we had a lot of Austinites involved in going up there with that story. Now, on the other hand, I've given you some off the mainline religious kind of stories, but I'm very committed also to mainline religions in terms of what they are doing and what's happening there. We recently had the large front page story about the Catholic bishop's pastoral letter on AIDS.
Okay.
So we got into that issue. We went to the National Baptist Convention in Dallas and did something on the Disney boycott that was coming down the pike there.
So you're not really limited just to the Austin city limits.
No, I'm not.
And but insofar as your main focus is here, I mean, think about this Karl Barth's image of the Bible in one hand and the newspaper in the other. I can't help but think that religion is a driving force. Whether we recognize it or not, along with the political and the economic forces in any society, in any community. And
right.
You seen that here?
I understand what you're saying, but I think what we realize at the American Statesman, and the reason that at least Rich Oppel and I've had great support from the other editors there, is the importance of religion in terms of driving the community, driving the nation. Now, you can make an argument, is this a Christian nation or not? I don't know. I don't answer those questions, but I do explore those issues. However, no matter who you are, as an individual, your values, your morality, how you vote, much of that is determined by your faith in terms of what faith you grew up in, what faith you may have rejected that you grew up in, or what faith you didn't have at the time when you were growing up. And that is a much more powerful force than any politician could ever hope to have in his entire career in terms of how faith, runs the nation. Now, we know religions clash in this nation all the time, and we have arguments. We know religions are clashing all over the world right now. We have wars. I mean, that can be a downside when people look at religion, and some people like to start stereotyping particular faiths based on what is going elsewhere. And of course, we all know that that is not true. One of the beauties of being a religion writer is you have this license to go out and explore all of these different faiths, which means you get this window to all of these religions. And what that teaches you is how at the very heart, every religion is a good one. You learn respect for these people and respect for these faiths.
I think that would be one thing that would be a value underlying your reporting. In other words, you want to be fair in reporting the facts as they are without putting your own interpretation on it. And at the same time, underlying it seems to me, is that you want to enrich or enhance the respect, because you see these examples around the world of, in Bosnia, of these, Muslims and Christians, Orthodox Catholics fighting each other. Over in Palestine, you've got the conflict there between the Palestinians and the Jews, and all over the world, ethnic conflict translated in terms of oftentimes religious values. Wouldn't you say that that's a presupposition on your part, that you're seeking to at least enhance or reinforce tolerance?
And I think that education is a very important part of religion reporting on both sides. It's important because I'm always learning things. I'm always being educated. It's one of the joys of being a religion writer. On the other side, it's my job to explain this to you if you, in fact, do not understand or know this piece of information, and to explain it in a way that it interests you. I don't want religion writing to be dry, and I'm just not one of those kind of people who wants to impress you also with my theological knowledge or intellect, which I probably don't have too much of. Or at least some people would say that. I like to think I have some that exist in my head.
You're learning more about religion as you report it.
Of course, and I hope that the readers are learning something. I mean, I want them to get value. I want your typical person who comes from work, maybe your Texas construction worker, and opens a beer and sits in front of the TV and grabs his newspaper, to actually be compelled to read this religion story. This should be interesting to you, and I hope that person walks away feeling that they have gained some knowledge.
You look at Austin as some of its unique characteristics, and I think you were mentioning earlier on, you've got a growing pluralism. You've got your traditional denominations, but you've also got this New Age component here in Austin. You've got three seminaries, actually, between the Presbyterian and the Episcopal, and then the Lutheran school that's connected to the Episcopal seminary. You've got across the metropolitan area, you've got these, like Hyde Park Baptist Church, which is one of the biggest in their denomination. And yet you've got small groups that are making a difference apart from numbers, but in terms of their influence and their social action. Am I kind of catching some of the sorts of flavor that you've found here? I'm just giving my perception of it.
Well, let's put it this way. I mean, Austin is like being in heaven for a religion writer.
Okay.
You're right. I
Because
mean,
of that
we
diversity.
have that array. Well, we have this wonderful theological knowledge here in our backyard, as you mentioned, with the seminaries, and also with the Catholic University and the teachers that they have there. So I have this wealth of professional resources sitting here in my backyard, as well as all of the different congregations and faiths that are growing. I mean, church
Right,
growth
right.
is very large here right now in Austin, as the community is also growing, and that is an exciting time. The one thing that I need to work harder on, having been here 8 months, I first hit the ground running and wanted to get out stories, wanted to get my name out there. I love writing the stories, but I also believe in getting to the people in the pews and understanding them better and listening to them, so that you don't always, too, have what the people who would be tagged the professionals or so-called experts be the only ones talking in the stories.
Let me just mention, we're talking about Austin, I think of course, the traditional institutions here, the University of Texas. You could talk about religion and Longhorn Stadium as a place where people worship.
That's right.
Football is,
You could.
is a religion for many. You've got the racial issues at the University of Texas, and the extent to which the race matters are just inseparable from people's commitments spiritually. I could see that. I'm just kind of brainstorming with you here.
Well, here's what you got, and that is that religion is everywhere.
Yeah.
It is you can find that in every facet of life, certainly here in Austin.
The Texas legislature is here, and I mean, they just don't say grace over
Right.
the opening, but you've got something like the Texas, what it has been the advocacy group for the interfaith community, trying to promote human services, sort of thing.
Right.
And then you've got the high-tech community, and the extent to which churches and congregations are beginning to feel the need to, be online and to communicate in various new ways. I'm just continuing to expand the Austin scene.
Well, what you're continuing to expand upon is exactly the expansion that exists on my desk right now. And once again, getting down to being the single individual, making the choices about those stories on a daily basis is very difficult.
It's tough.
Because you don't want to leave anyone out. I'm the type of person who, this is not probably a popular religious concept, as you well know, but if I could have been cloned a few more times, I would certainly do very well at being able to get out and get a few more stories in all those different areas, and I would like to do that. In fact, cloning is a very big religious issue.
Well, there
right
you go.
now.
That's right. And then besides the individual congregations, you've got these groups that work together, like Austin Interfaith, that really has had an impact in terms of social issues. Austin Metropolitan Ministries, our sponsoring group here, is another example of that ecumenical kind of thing. So you have inspired me just to go on and on.
Well, that's great. Feel free to go on and
Yeah.
on. I feel that way every day when I walk into the office, and the amount of mail that I get also reflects the great growth and the number of issues that are out there for us to tackle. And I would like to tell the community that I'm accessible.
All right. Well, I'm just going to say, in closing, that people can call you.
Yes, they can.
Kim Sue Lee Perks at the Austin American Statesman, and you've got a particular number down there that they can call.
Yes, they can reach me at 445-3974. And sometimes I answer. I'm very good at answering my calls.
That's the number, and that's it, folks. We have to bail out here, but be with us next week on Austin Faith Dialogue. I'm Rich Thompson, and peace be with you.